Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Cohn, the editorial director here at Spin, and we're here today with David Ryan Harris. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Beautiful weather. This is what I get to do for a living. I've got close to zero complaints.
Close to zero?
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Ah, there you go.
A solvable problem.
A very solvable problem.
Yeah.
So, one of the big topics we talk about here at Spin Impact is mental health.
Yes.
So, as a touring artist, how do you find it to maintain your mental health? Like, when you're on the road or when you're in the studio or after a session, what are some of the practices you do to kind of stay grounded?
I've never been asked that question specifically as it pertains to touring, and kind of thinking about it, I think the thing that I've sort of adopted, I've been doing it a really long time, and I found that the thing that helps me preserve or maintain my mental health the most efficiently is learning how to say no. Because there's always, you go to a new city, somebody hasn't seen you, they're like, we got to go out and do the thing because you're never here. But then you have that 7 days a week, and so you're always out doing the thing. You don't get the rest. You don't get, the time to just kind of sit in your room and find your center. It's, I think it's relatively difficult to maintain the center when your center is kind of bouncing around the world. So me just like being okay with having mild amounts of FOMO and just saying I can't do it. It's been like the biggest maintainer of sort of my mental well-being on the road.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that as much fun as this is, it's still a job.
Yes. And it's a weird way to make a living. It's a weird way to live, like, bouncing around to like a relative party every night, and everyone's like, well, this is amazing. We have to raise tonight because you're never in Kansas City. And it's like, yeah, no, but they said that when I was in Little Rock also last night, and they said that in Memphis the night before. And so it's just you have to fight really hard, I think, to maintain that and just not burn the candle at all possible ends.
Speaking of that, when you're on the road for like 2 months, do you find it more challenging to kind of stay grounded in that regard, just because you've been out and like maybe 2 months is maybe it's just let's just say 2 months as a catch-all. It could be 6 weeks, it could be a month. How do you find yourself able to still be grounded with being away from home as long as you were?
It's funny because when you first go out, I always liken it to being in a submarine. So you start and you kind of go under, and you're in like this world where you have to like become accustomed to the amount of time that you see daylight and the amount of time that you're sort of above air, and that takes a little bit of adjusting to. And then eventually you get into the best of all kind of possible rhythms where you're like, all right, I'm fine with not going out. I can maintain this thing. I know what my surroundings are. You have like a little bit of a routine as much as you can get it. And then for sort of the last period, it's just like itchiness. You're like, I just want this shit to be over, because it's weird. It's almost like I've been holding my breath for too long and I'm ready to just go home. So just depending on what part of that journey, it takes a different skill set. And I feel like for me, I've just done it long enough to know, like, don't freak out at any of those individual things. Like, it's just a sort of a natural progression. And again, just like finding the time to like take care of yourself, which a lot of times for me, it's just saying, no, I'm gonna watch a stupid movie in my room.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of great stupid movies to decompress to.
Yes.
What's your favorite? What's your go-to?
Oh man.
Or let's do a top 5 go-to stupid movies to decompress to.
To be perfectly honest, I don't really watch the stupid movies because I'm always like, if I have an hour and I wasted on a movie that was not good, because I have kids and I don't really have time by myself, I'm like, I just wasted. I'm fucking so mad. So I end up watching like when I'm home, never watch ESPN. Don't care. But when I'm on the road, there's a little bit of like, there's a little bit of a sameness to it. Doesn't matter who's playing or what sport we're in. The cadence of their speech is always the same. There's a little bit of a like sort of a micro drama.
Yes.
No matter the playoffs, mid-season, hockey, baseball, basketball. There's all like so. My go-to is that I'm gonna turn ESPN.
And what is generally your favorite that you? I know you just named like 5 sports, but if something's on, it's like because I feel like sports is good background
literally any sports if it's the playoffs.
Oh, playoff. Well, that's the key. Now it's peak season for that.
Any sport, don't care, even if it's something I've never heard of. Like it's the playoffs and like stakes are high, I'm in.
But but the fact that you know that's what kind of soothes you and like gets you to like, turn the switch off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important. A lot of people don't know that how that works for them.
And it kind of gives a little bit of it's a familiar drone. You go to a city, like, if you're in Manhattan, there's sirens and there's people and taxis, and like, that's a weird thing to sort of sleep through. And then sometimes you can be in places where it's just too fucking quiet.
Yeah.
So having just the den of ESPN and, those commentators waxing poetic about things that they probably couldn't do on their own. A lot of commentators that have never played sports at all. But just having the familiarity of those people, no matter where we are, is odd. It's become oddly satisfying and comforting.
Not odd at all. It's your way of that's your way of routine on the road, and it makes life easier once you know that.
Yeah.
I feel you don't have to go out every night like you were saying. You could just pop on ESPN in the background, kind of just let everything roll off, and then when the game's over, SportsCenter's on.
Yes, exactly. I know exactly what it is. It used to be like, you go through like cycles where it's news channels, and that just kind of bums you out. It just completely bums you out. The antithesis of taking care of maintaining mental health is watching that.
So what advice would you give to a young up-and-coming artist on how to maintain their mental health? Because now it just seems like there's so many distractions with social media, worrying about Spotify charts and all these things. What wisdom would you have to impart in them?
Man, I mean, I think it's a little different for every artist, and a lot of the things that I would say or suggest are things that I'm sure they've all heard a million times, and it's sort of the interface of whatever social media and being sort of beholden to that is just like not a true metric of what the world is, and it's like one of the biggest struggles. I mean, I think it's probably as difficult in some ways as people that are alcoholics to not drink alcohol, to like remove yourself from this thing that you actually have to participate in some level to progress in your career. But it's like you can only take so much. It's an inaccurate metric of what the world looks like, and just to look at most of it as fiction and not the real world. Like it's like you can tell yourself, or you can know that you took 30 different shots to get the shot that you post, but for some reason people think that the other people only took one shot to get the shot. So as long as you know, none of this shit is real. Everybody's taking 30 shots to get the shot. So don't beat yourself up about like, well, how come I don't look like this thing, or how come my post doesn't look like these other people's posts, like they did it the first time. We're all sort of, everybody's faking it. So I mean, that's been huge for me, and like a balance. Like some days I'm great at it, sometimes I'm not great at it, and that's cool too.
The fact that you know it though is a big part of the battle.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, is there anything else you want to say to everyone out there?
I mean, just fucking be cool, man. I mean, we sounds like super reductive and hippie, but we live in a time that I actually don't think our brains were designed. Our brains are still like running like firmware 1.0, but the world is like firmware like 7.9, and you just got to take a breath, take a beat, know that like the guy in the car did not get in his car first thing in the morning and go like, I cannot wait to cut this guy off. Like no one is, that's no one's objective. It's just like take a breath. Everybody's going through something.